In the modern world, buying a new car has become very expensive. In the United States, our average transaction price to buy a new vehicle, and I'm not talking about some specialty thing, a regular car is now $50,000. And you ask the common person what they think about that, and I think people's interest in vehicles are starting to wane quite a bit. We've assembled 4 that buck the trend. 4 vehicles that start in the low $20,000 and kind of move up to about $27,000 if you spec them out properly. The Civic, the Corolla, the Chevy Trax, and the VW Jetta. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of each, interior, exterior, test the audio systems, talk about some of the engineering, the drivability, and which one you would want to take home. But we're going to start with the only non-car of the bunch, and that's because our American brands have abandoned vehicles in favor of CUVs or SUVs. The Chevy Trax. The Chevy Trax previous generation was a vehicle that you would literally buy because it was the cheapest thing you could possibly get. The outside and the inside were cost cut to oblivion, and it made you feel almost sad to own this car. This generation attempts to fix all of that. It's built in South Korea by Chevrolet's Korean division for their small car platforms, and on the inside and outside, you can look at this from 50 feet away or up close, and you feel like your money was well spent, not only in terms of feature set, but price. You can walk into a dealership, they're not gonna hit you with a bunch of markups. You can get one with a discount around $20,000 to start, and we have the active one, which is tarted up quite a bit. When you sit this vehicle upright, it does look like a bigger SUV. The footprint seems much bigger, but again, it's more of a car underneath. The inside part of this is where you're going to spend most of your time. And again, as you move up a little bit in the price bracket, you get things like the active trim where you have the green piping on the seats. The infotainment gets a big bump in terms of wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. You get dual screens, which the screen actually looks quite good on the gauge cluster and the display. They have really good color reproduction. The black levels are great. The UI definitely, because of this price point, is slower. You can see the transitions and animations are very slow to redraw, but mostly everything in it works quite well for this price point. It's super impressive in how the technology has evolved. Usability is also great. Things like fitting a standard 24-ounce refillable water bottle in the door and the cup holders are a minimal problem. I mean, it just, everything that you utilize in this car is very well thought out for this generation. It's something that this brand has done much better, combining some of the quality elements and quality of life elements with the usability. Of course, there is some cost cutting, and you can't get away from it. There's some very, very cheap and low rent plastics on the door. It definitely is the worst of the bunch in terms of that. It feels the most industrial, for sure. They don't even try to hide it. But, you know, really, most people are going to get in here for the price and be super impressed. And it's the only vehicle in this group with a hatch. So you can lift up the hatch, you can store so much stuff in there because you're not limited by a trunk, of course. And underneath the floor, if you choose to remove the small spare tire, there's an enormous amount of space under that cargo hold. So again, usability is probably the best of the bunch. And of course, it's a cheater thing here. It's not really a car, it's a CUV. But I think you're going to appreciate this. And overall, I think it's a very well laid out interior space. We're going to move on to the VW Jetta. The Jetta is made in Mexico, and supply chain is from Mexico. And this is a vehicle that is very much on the lower end of price point, but gives you a ton of features. Jack's going to tell you about some of the mechanical benefits of it. For that, you get things like heated seats, you get automatic climate control, you get some touch usability on the HVAC that mirrors itself in the infotainment, but they haven't screwed things up here. You have physical controls on the steering wheel, and you do have physical controls in other places. This is also the only car of the bunch that has a physical key. There is no proximity key. You actually have to turn it, and I just can't believe my wrists can't handle such a complicated procedure. So there's things here that are great from the old school perspective, but also some of the modern things that people like. The infotainment, this design has been around for quite a bit, and they've improved it very much. Where it was very frustrating to use, now it's back to a lot of physical controls. The digital gauge cluster is very simple, very easy to use, and configurability is far superior than that of something like the Civic or the Corolla. Seat-wise, it's a cloth seat, basically like every single car in this comparison test, but there's a lot of give here. They don't feel very high quality, but they breathe very, very well, and they are super comfortable. When you fire up the seat heater, it's like instantaneous, like you're not gonna be cold in here. Usability is very good here in terms of door storage. You can fit a massive bottle, and I would say that this is probably the best in terms of door storage of the 3 cars. The cup holder space is great, and the place where you put your phone for the wireless charger is excellent. You can still get at your phone or whatever you're putting in there. It doesn't fall into a cavern. USB ports are readily accessible here, and basically this car feels very, very purposeful, super, super focused on being basic, right? Like basic and not in a bad way, and that's why I really like this. The back seats are comfortable, but this definitely loses some points to the Trax because it's got a trunk, and while the trunk is big, you know, you can get in there. It has a spare tire as well. I think, you know, you're gonna have to temper your expectations here in terms of space and try out that back seat. This is one of my favorites in terms of overall functionality. The next vehicle in the test is the Toyota Corolla, and I hate to say this, it feels the most aged of all of these vehicles, and to be fair, it is probably the oldest of the bunch. This vehicle is made in the United States, however, in Mississippi, so if you're someone that wants a true, like, American experience, that's this vehicle. On the outside, it stayed pretty fresh, and its footprint is smaller than the other vehicles. It's probably the best one if you have a small garage space or you're doing street parking. It doesn't take up a lot of room, and you can get into it rather affordably, although our tester is on the high end of $20,000. The interior space is it's the worst of the bunch. It's definitely the most aged. Things like getting your phone in the wireless charger is kind of comical. It's so far off, and it's so hard to get to things there. It has the worst usable door storage. Like, it's so hard to fit things in there. It's a very tight pocket, and the center console space overall feels very, very cramped. It's also some of the most uncomfortable in terms of armrest is very hard. Where you put your elbows is not the most comfortable, and it just feels very, very cheap in here. I mean, it's very rental car-ish compared to the other cars despite its price point being higher. The steering wheel controls are basic. All the safety switching doesn't go through the infotainment. It goes through the center gauge cluster, so you can toggle things on and off, and it gives you the bare basics of what you need without having to screw with this car, which is why the Corolla has always been sought after. It's a car you get in, you don't think about, and you know it's gonna work. It does have the first generation of Toyota Connected, so the infotainment does work well, and once you get used to it, if you have the connected services, you get maps built in. The software part of it is not the problem, but you know, like a lot of the things that you see on the other cars, you can tell this is the most aged. The trunk space is very good. However, it is an enormous trunk, and you can lift up. You do have a small spare tire in there, but you're not going to want in terms of trunk space. And when you fold down the seats, it's a very, very usable car. The last car in this test is the Honda Civic Sport Sedan. The sedan is made in Canada. If you opt for the hatchback, that's made in the United States. This car won our best small car of the year when it came out because Honda combined the exterior and interior in a price point that does everything as perfect as you can in a car platform. The outside isn't as conservative as the Jetta, where you look at it and you don't fall asleep. There's some interesting color options, and the styling has aged very well because it's more of a throwback. The interior space is packaged tremendously well, and they put the money where they needed to make sure you felt like you were driving a substantial vehicle. Things like HVAC controls, steering controls are ultra clicky, feel very high quality. The areas they did not cost cut in are the areas that you really interact with every day. Things like the shifter has a solid feel, the steering feels like you're in command of this car, and the visibility is really great for a modern vehicle. The seating surface, despite them being cloth, are very supportive and comfortable, much like the Jetta, and everything in terms of interior ergonomics is great. Where you put your elbows, where you interact with, you're not going to be as fatigued in this car as like you would in the Corolla. Now, the usability isn't as good as the Jetta in terms of door storage and some of the storage of the Jetta, but it's pretty close. And the trunk is absolutely enormous in here, and there's room for every single body type in here. This is one of the few small cars that is packaged properly, that you could be a taller person and fit in here. You're not going to struggle with that, and they're still going to fit people in the back seat. So if you're looking for a car that is going to have the space for you, a bigger footprint, this is going to be probably the best car of the bunch other than the Trax. Now, if you're concerned with space, obviously the Corolla has a smaller footprint, and the Jetta splits the difference somewhere in terms of subjective feel. Now, the last thing to talk about here is the audio system test, and I'm not going to bore you with the technical details other than giving you the best to the worst. The best audio system in this test, and these are all base audio systems, no premium options here. The Civic tests the best and is audibly the best in terms of accurately reproducing sound. The second place car is the Toyota Corolla, which typically the Corolla has always been the worst in the small car platform, but it does find a good balance between accuracy and not making your ears bleed from just crass sound and distortion, and the bass isn't overbearing. The third place car is the Trax, and despite the Trax, when you look at the frequency response being absolutely horrible, it's like they figured out they needed to put speakers in the middle of it being assembled in the factory. There was zero thought to sound in that car. It still sounds better audibly, despite the tests looking bad, than the last place car of the Jetta. And Jack joked around he would rather listen to music through his phone speaker than play the music through the Jetta's audio system. The distortion levels are just so high in here. This has got to be one of the worst audio systems we've ever listened to subjectively and objectively as well. Let's get into Jack's conversation about the technical side of these cars.
Now that Mark's talked about the interior, let's discuss some engineering, starting with the Chevy Trax. This car was developed by GM's Korean engineers. It's built on their small vehicle architecture that they scale out to some other products. It is powered by a 1.2 liter, 3-cylinder turbocharged engine. It makes under 140 horsepower, it's like 137, and like 160-ish foot-pounds of torque. It has the worst fuel economy out of the group, largely due to the fact that it's the only CUV in the group. We're looking at 30 combined, 32 highway, and like high 20s city, though honestly in the real world in our stop and go test, you're looking at like the mid 20s. This vehicle also puts its power through a 6-speed traditional torque converted automatic, no CVT here. From a suspension perspective, it's strut front and it's torsion beam rear. The nice thing about this vehicle is it is super easy to access all of your service items, and everything from struts to oil filters to brake pads to rotors are all incredibly cheap. I'm going to very quickly talk about the depreciation curve of this vehicle. It is the steepest out of the group. Your residuals after 5 years are like in the, let's call mid 50% range. Now the next vehicle we're going to talk about is the Volkswagen Jetta. This is on the MQB A1 platform. It is Volkswagen's modular front wheel drive architecture. Just like the Trax, it has a torsion beam rear end. It comes on 17-inch wheels. All the consumable items are very, very cheap. However, honestly, from a service perspective, the VW will be the highest. When it comes to a drivetrain side of things, it has a 1.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. It produces 184 foot-pounds of torque, 160, 150-ish for horsepower, and it puts its power through an 8-speed automatic gearbox. And if you get it in this sport trim, it comes with a differential from Volkswagen, so it's not an open diff car. Honestly, is the quickest car of the bunch by far. You're looking at 0 to 60 in just over 7 seconds, and does return pretty stellar fuel economy. You can get almost 40 on the highway if you're driving conservatively. And the next vehicle is the Toyota Corolla. This is the oldest car out of the bunch. It debuted the first out of all 4 of these vehicles. And honestly, if you look at it, you can kind of tell this is on TNGA's small car platform. If you get this as a true base model, it comes on a torsion beam, though this SE and every higher trim has an independent rear suspension. This car has a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. It's good for 0 to 60 and somewhere in the 8s. It produces like over 150, 160 horsepower, gets pretty decent fuel economy, and it has a CVT. Toyota's take on a CVT, so it's basically a planetary gear set. You have a physical first gear and then simulated gears past that. Lastly, the Honda Civic Sport. We have the sedan variant to keep the price a little lower. You can also get this as a hatchback, though it costs a little bit more money. This is on Honda's small car platform that gets scaled out to things like the Accord and the CR-V and everything else they make. It is by far the most expensive looking architecture. It's independent rear suspension all the way across the trim levels, strut front. It has a true belt-driven CVT, and it puts its power through a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder. It is by far the slowest out of the bunch. It gets, 0 to 60 in like 9 seconds, which is not quick, and it produces around 150 horsepower and essentially no torque. And just like all the other vehicles, easy to service, low running costs, low costs of consumables, and this has the best residual out of the bunch, just eking out the Corolla by a couple percentage points after 5 years. And in comparison, the Jetta is just over like 62 or 63% of residual after 5 years. So that, Mark and I are going to go take you for a drive in all 4 of these vehicles.
Jack, I hate to be this guy, but I'm an hour late to get Korean meatballs.
Well, the Trax will not get you there any faster. Sadly, or not sadly, the Trax has a not great reputation earned by its prior generation vehicles. As we discussed in our long form Trax video, this is far from bad. And the fact that this is affordable and really it's really a hatchback that's lifted that looks like a CUV, only CUV in our test. It's really impressive how much car you can get for honestly not a lot of money in the real world. This is the active trim level, so Chevy, like a lot of the other brands, did not give us the base trim level we asked for. And then the real world,
well, nobody would want to showcase that. I mean, this is a good balance, though. You know, like most people don't buy the base model just because the dealers don't stock them. They don't move as well, so it gives you a little bit of features in here to well, a lot of features.
This honestly is probably the best equipped out of the bunch.
Yeah, for sure. For the price.
Leather-ish seats,
yeah.
Heated seats, big screen storage, automatic climate control, and some kind of gearbox that allows smooth shifts.
Yeah.
I mean, this is far from a bad car, and it's affordable. This thing is like 24 grand with discounts.
Yeah, no, it definitely, it offers a lot, and we could argue the whole thing of the American car brands bailing out on having real cars.
Yes.
This is indicative of this test, right? You're gonna like, why don't you have a car? Well, they don't have a car, and they're going to Korea, their Korean division, to spin up something small like this.
Yes.
And thank God this time, this is nothing new, GM building small cars in Korea. It's just now this is one of the first that they've done that's actually super competitive, and I know that's what we said in the last Trax video. So let's talk about why you would choose this other than the ride height, the ground clearance, the fact that it's an SUV and not a car. What is it like to actually operate?
Inoffensive. I think, I'm not going to say in this group that this is the most compelling vehicle to drive. It's not. It's definitely somewhere in the bottom middle. Mm-hmm. I think, as we're going to talk about when we get into the base Corolla, that car is probably worse to drive than this. But, I mean, it rides all right. I definitely feel like this architecture isn't the most premium. There's some of the buzziness you're expecting from the rear end in a car like this. But the core inputs, the gearbox in this thing is reasonably calibrated. While this is a very buzzy little engine, it's not offensive. The steering is fairly direct, and the brake and the throttle are easy to apply, and again, non-offensive. If you need a transportation tool that is lifted in ride height, pretty okay to look at, good interior space, and gets, honestly, in the real world, pretty good fuel economy, and you need something that's affordable, this is proof that you don't have to get some terrible old POS used car. This is a very decent little CV. What are your takeaways before we head into the next one?
I think this is going to really appeal for the same reasons you said. It's offering the core things that people in this buying segment want. It's not a total rental car, although it doesn't feel super premium. But the places they put the money, you can tell, makes a big difference. The upper trim level with infotainment, like you said, people are going to like if you're coming from...
core functions it does well.
All the checklist of
moonroof.
It has all the features that people like, and you're going to forgive the fact that it's kind of a generic SUV thing, honestly. But, it doesn't have, like, the fun to drive of, like, the Jetta, the, like, nimbleness of the Civic, the reliability of the Corolla, where you will literally just drive that until, like, 17 million miles. So this has a lot of, like, X factor that makes it better on the feature set, but a lot of things that make it very unappealing in terms of, like, resale value and just overall, like, long-term buying. So, Jack, I want to drive a car.
All right. Well, that's all we have for the rest of this test is cars, sir.
Jack? Built in Mississippi.
Fucking maniac. You're really using that one piston caliber for all it's worth. You know what I wanted to experience today? A 2-liter paired to a CVT with a physical first gear, Mark, and fake shifts.
Feels good. Feels zesty.
All right, I talked about it in our, let's not call it our shop segment, our technical segment. This thing gets great fuel economy, you know, better than the Civic, worse than the Jetta. And the real reason you're buying this more than anything is that it says Toyota on it, right? You want a Corolla, you never want it to break. You want an appliance you can take to the grave that, for the most part, does everything pretty well. I do think from a driving experience, this is near the bottom for me, though, from a actual input perspective. I don't think the steering is particularly linear. It's fast off center, but slow the rest of the way, which is very weird to me. The brake pedals in all these cars feel about the same. The 4-cylinder in this car, while it's more efficient than the Civic, and it's technically faster than the Civic Sport we have, it's pretty wheezy and anemic feeling.
Yeah, this car, its main problem, even compared to the Trax, is it feels very, very tin can.
Yes.
It feels very buzzy. I mean, clearly we're taking a car that you're going to just unbelievably pile miles on your daily commute, and you're not going to have to think about it, truthfully, right? This is a car you literally will never give a second thought to. The fundamental things that you want it to do well is it somewhat comfortable to drive? Is it taxing to drive? And I would say, despite its buzziness and noisiness and kind of like tin canny feel, it's very easy to drive.
It is the worst riding, though. It rides the worst out of all 4 of these cars.
Yes, it communicates just enough to you. It doesn't have a ton of head bob. It feels the most like connected, and you know what's going on with it. But I for sure, you're right. If I had to be in a car long term on the highway, I would not want to be in this.
This is, I think, I just think it's the body structure that this car is on.
Low amplitude, high frequency stuff, or like expansion joints is okay. It's the high amplitude stuff. Like when you actually hit bigger bumps, it just feels like it's crashing into you. So it doesn't isolate that out very well. And what basically we're roundabout saying is this is the oldest car of the group,
yes,
really, and it feels it in every single way. If you're looking for more refinement, more comfort, like a quieter, like less airborne noise, which is where this car suffers the most, this is not the car for you. You're not buying this car for those reasons. You have to buy it because it's going to hold its value the best. It's going to be the most reliable, just historically reliable, and the running costs are going to be literally next to nothing because the supply chain is so built out on this. I could find a brake pad in probably the gutter over here in a drainage ditch and put it on this car. That's how available everything is, and that's the beauty of this car. But I will say it's definitely fallen behind to the competitors. For sure.
I think this class of car is something that Toyota is probably going to be updating here very soon. They just did the RAV4, which means this is probably next.
Yeah, it has
to be.
Yeah.
And that's where this thing shows its age. The thing I will bring up is, I'm not sure if you've talked about it, the safety suite in this car. The lane keep assist and the cruise control, depending on what trim level you get, is actually pretty good.
Yeah, no, it is. Actually, Toyota's made huge strides in that with their current generation stuff. And while this isn't like the latest cutting edge version of it, it's still very competent. And if you lean on the safety stuff quite a bit, at least in frontal crash mitigation and lane departure, it's very, very consistent and not very annoying, which is surprising to say because Toyota is very overbearing with their safety stuff. But anyway, Jack, I think it's time to get in the VW Jetta.
Physical gears, Mark.
To the VW Jetta Burrito Supreme. Oh! You had me floating. I was not expecting that. You're lucky I didn't have my quesadilla before this drive, Jack.
Mark, this is my perfect fusion of things. Mexico and Germany in a single product.
It doesn't get much sweeter than this.
And we have Sport on the door.
Oh yeah, the Sport that looks like they found in a gumball machine.
This, to me, from a driving perspective, if you're looking for a little bit of spice in your life, Mark, this is...
It is unique.
Yes, this is by far the quickest out of the group. Not Tesla fast next to me quick, but All these other cars are 0 to 60 in like 8 or 9 seconds.
When you compare it to the other cars, it feels sporty.
It feels like a rocket ship.
And I didn't think that I would like this per se because it is so plain Jane and just like it feels somewhat cardboard. But it's really grown on me because it does almost every single thing that you want like a car to do well. It's pretty quiet. The airborne noise is greatly reduced compared to the Corolla. It doesn't feel like a tin can when you drive it. Ride refinement's high.
Despite having a torsion beam in the back.
Yeah. No, for sure. It does a really good job overall. And to your point, like if you do care about a little bit of acceleration, while I would argue that the gearbox doesn't do a great job, its smoothness, it lacks tons of refinement in its calibration, it's still somewhat engaging to drive. And your big point about this?
Cheap.
And
this is easily the cheapest car in our test. In the real world, pre-tax, this thing's $23,000.
Yeah.
You get a differential in the front, which if you're looking to drive this in the snow or have a little bit of fun on a back road, you get a diff, you get heated seats, you have a physical key, which is hilarious to me.
Yeah.
And you get like when he means that the gearbox isn't that refined. If you go into normal mode, you get this thing to start to gear hunt, it always wants to be in the highest gear possible for maximum fuel efficiency. So it just kind of lugs its way down the highway in top gear.
And you were saying like the fuel efficiency of this thing is incredible, right?
Yes, you're in this group, in my test, which was basically from where you live to the shop and then back, so a 28-mile test, this got mid-30s, which is all stop go, blah, blah. Everything else was either in the high 20s or low 30s. So this gets tremendous fuel economy. It's the quickest out of the group. And honestly, I think the Civic is probably the best car when it comes to inputs, as we're about to get into. But this is probably second. You get fairly linear steering. You have some control of the gearbox.
Yeah.
The inputs are all one-to-one, and it rides all right. And again, it's cheap.
It's cheap, and it does offer, again, like that's its unique selling point is ride refinement and actual engaging to drive. I say that loosely. You know, the way that you can pilot this and feel control and then still have like that very, very faint whiff of potential luxury. You know, It feels like the least tin can of these cars. But, you know, there's a couple things that drive me nuts about it. And again, you talked about it with the gearbox. I hate the fact that it's gear hunting to get up to the highest gear. And it does feel, it's got that sensation. It's like fighting to take a shit. It's like, it gets up there, it lugs, and then it's downshifting, and then re-upshifting. So that fuel economy that you're getting
we didn't even put this in eco mode.
Yeah, I'm sure
now
it's
we're in
even
eco mode, eco driving.
So it's going to be worse. But anyway, that's just one thing to note. It is a really good car for the price. Like, forget about all that. Forget about the audio system being like straight out of a U-Haul truck. I mean, there's things about this that they've cost cut this to oblivion to get it to that point, but it still delivers on what you need it to.
And the safety suite, which is standard at this price point for the Sport. Lane keep works well. Adaptive cruise control does okay.
Unobtrusive.
Yes.
You trust it in this car, and you know, like the basic things that it does, much like the Corolla, we haven't found really any bugs with it, so you could lean on it if you needed to.
Yeah. Again, ride refinement better than the Corolla, probably a little worse than the Trax, which the benefit of that thing is the ride height.
Right.
And then as we're about to experience, you can very clearly tell in this test, and to be fair, it is the most expensive of the group, where the money went in the Civic. So Mark, show me what the Takumis did in Ohio.
It's not Ohio. It's Canada.
Oh, it's Canadian?
It's Canadian. Dude, why don't you get your facts straight,
you make
pal?
me sick.
Hey, pal, get your facts straight. Don't
hit the brakes.
No! All right, Jack, you ready for this? Oh, man, the e-brake wouldn't let me go nuts.
Last but not least, Mark, the Honda Civic Sport Sedan.
Listen to her sing.
A true CVT, unlike... Oh my God, dude.
Holy shit. So let's just say the ABS is, it gives you a lot of leeway to do some sliding in this car. Oh my God, that was amazing. So if you want to do the best brake
the
skids,
CX-30 is probably like, what the f***?
They need to do a data dump to see how far I got a four-wheel slide on this thing.
This feels like the most expensive car because it is the most expensive car here. Like, it takes you about 2 seconds and you're like, yeah.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, even though we have a proclivity towards praising this car because it unshitboxed this segment, you can tell that it has a much higher price point because it has to scale out, right? It has to be a CRV, so that you're paying more up front because yes, it's just much nicer. The attention to details here, drivability is really good. The physical inputs, ride quality is pretty good. But on this lower trim level, you really feel, despite this being a naturally aspirated engine, which we say we always want, it's not well isolated out. It's very rattly. It's comically sluggish.
This is 9 seconds to 60.
Yeah.
Which is it's slower than the Trax. Slower than a 1.2 liter CUV.
Yeah. So does that translate into better fuel economy, though?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, the drivetrain, dude, is not good. I think that becomes the hard part, is like, this is the nicest interior, I think, by far. It rides the best. It feels the most expensive. It has IRS. It's a longer wheelbase car. This 2-liter one, I'm assuming it's reliable. The fact that it has no power and no torque, and you combine it with a real CVT, belt driven. If you ever need to accelerate, you were reminded by the fact that this makes like no horsepower. Well, it doesn't get bad fuel economy. Real world, same loop in all the cars. I got just under 30, so it's a couple miles per gallon worse than both the Corolla and the Jetta. Still better than the Trax. That's the disappointing part of this. I wish you could get the drivetrain reliability aside of the Jetta and you put it in this car. I think it would be pretty good.
Yeah, and this is a sad one because you really have to scale up to the hybrid to get the refinement back out of this, and
or the
1.5. Exactly. It just, overall, this is the best car to be in and live with every day because it's just so usable, practical, it's comfortable, it drives well, the software, every touch point's good. But it's also the second noisiest car here compared to the Corolla. Its airborne noise is really high, namely when you come out of like the Jetta, where the Jetta feels far more refined. This is definitely a more noisy experience.
Honda nickels and dimes their customer in this car.
Yeah.
You want better sound deadening? You got to pay more, which they'll add sound deadening in this car. You want heated seats in my $28,000 car? You got to pay more money to do that. You want wireless CarPlay? You got to pay money to do that. I think that's, while as good as this car is, it is the most expensive, and really to get features that you can get on a $22,000 Jetta or a $24,000, I'm saying discounted, of course, $24,000 Trax, you got to go past $30,000, which is the hard part.
That's a really hard sell, and I mean, we have this conversation, the philosophical part of when you don't have money, that spread of like $2,000 to $5,000 might as well be $50,000 for some people. This is going to force people away from Honda and into things like Chevy, where you're going to get discounts and incentives. This car it's priced people out. And while I'd say it's worth the money because it not only you're paying more residual wise, this is going to hold
the strongest residual of the group.
Yeah, even better than the Corolla.
The Corolla, the Jetta, and the Trax in that order for residual.
So you're going to pay more up front. If you're coming from that mindset of like, I'm keeping this car eternally, or if you want to get your money back, you're never going to have a problem with this, but you're just having to pay more up front, and that's going to be a very difficult place to be if you're feature conscious.
Yes.
If you want the kitchen sink in terms of features, obviously you want a Trax. If you don't care about any of the stuff we're talking about, the Trax does a great job for, doing a lot of the things that this is deficient in for a lot less money. But, it's the Honda tax a little bit that's come into play.
Yes, and unlike the Corolla, this thing was designed in this era of car.
Yeah.
The Corolla is the oldest car of the group.
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily entirely a bad thing, but from a feature and driving perspective, technology objectively, from the way cars are made, largely gets better.
Yeah.
OEMs don't really make worse cars than their prior gen products. So I guess with that, Mark, I'm going to have you finalize all of this, but my takeaway before we get into the final thoughts is that you don't need to spend $47,000 or $50,000 in a car to get a very competent, do-everything vehicle. There are affordable cars, and they are good. And I think if you compared any of the cars we drove now to vehicles from like the late 90s, the cars objectively now are much better.
Nothing's better than my 1987 Honda Civic. It just had a key and a gas pedal and a brake, and it's the best.
Was it diesel too?
Yeah.
Was it brown diesel wagon?
And if I get hit by a bicyclist, yes, I will die. So here we are, 4 cars, 4 different philosophies, and there's not a right or a wrong in terms of which one you choose. And I think there's something here for everyone. Starting with probably our 2 favorites, the Civic. It goes without saying, it does everything so well. And while there are deficiencies in terms of feature set, you're not gonna go wrong there. It's not a car that you're gonna lose a ton of value on. It's going to be reliable, and everybody wants one. So it's just so tried and true, easy choice. It also has the best audio system. The base infotainment is super simple and it works, and it has one of the best backup cameras of all of these cars we tested. The second place car for us is the Jetta. The Jetta is surprisingly good, and because you can get discounts on it, it drives well, it's the most refined, it's got a pretty good feature set, it is very comfortable, and it does car things extremely well. Although the trade-off is, yes, it has more depreciation than you would like compared to the other ones, and servicing it or keeping it on the road long-term is going to be far more questionable. So if you're someone that is gonna flip cars more often, that might be the car for you. The third place car is the Chevy Trax. And the Trax is great because you can get it, and you can get it for very cheap. The lower trim levels they're giving away at dealerships. This is not a vehicle people are going to be fighting to get. Dealers are not going to be marking them up. So if you need the cheapest thing possible with the best feature set, the Trax does a great job, and it actually drives pretty good. It's got a regular gearbox, and it's got the second best backup camera of the bunch as well in terms of software experience. The last place car is the Toyota Corolla, and this is going to seem counterintuitive, but it's just because it feels old. You know, it's dated, it's noisy, it definitely feels the most cramped on the inside, but the trade-off is it's probably going to be tied for reliability. The car you're going to keep the longest, and if it's a car that you need to be a complete appliance that will stay on the road as long as you're probably alive, you would choose this probably even over the Civic, because it's been out so long, there's a cajillion of them on the road, and you're probably going to get it, maybe not discounted, but you're going to get it easily without a fight. You know, again, we're saying this from our perspective of combining all these factors that are in place. It's probably going to be a much different story when the new Corolla comes out, but that's where it stands today. Appreciate you taking your 30 minutes of time and hearing us out, and hopefully if you need a car and you don't just want one, there's something to like here for everybody.